And hello, world! What is up? Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Matt Forte, and we are here live at the Build Studio in New York City. The Most Unknown is an epic documentary film told with humor and the thrill of discovery that pushes the boundaries of how science storytelling is approached. What emerges is a deeply human trip to the foundations of discovery and a powerful reminder that the unanswered questions are the crucial ones to pose. Here to tell us all about the film and how they made it, I've got filmmakers and producers. Cheney is here, Lindsay Blatt is here, and theoretical physicist and winner of the 2018 Breakthrough Prize in Fundamental Physics, David Spergel is here. How about that, guys? Make some noise for your panel, please. Ridiculously intelligent people. Very smart people. And so we're going to bring them out in just a second. I'm super excited to talk to them. But before we do, I believe we have a quick look at the trailer for the film. So, Luke, why don't you go ahead and let's run that clip, man.
How can I, as a small person, answer a question about the cosmos? You have a puzzle with a billion pieces, and we've got one piece.
So, why are we here?
The microbes that I study in hot springs are paramount to understanding where life could be in space.
You're trying to solve this problem. You know, I wake up at night thinking about it.
So you're a nerd too?
100% nerd.
We can speak from very different scientific disciplines and yet speak common language.
Oh my God!
Oh my God!
Welcome.
See if you can make a robotic hand move by your thoughts.
When you're right on the edge of this big unknown, it's very hard to say where the science is going to go next.
There must be things we cannot understand.
What makes you willing to search after something that we don't even really know
exists? It must be there. Come on.
Where do you get that, though?
Everybody's dream as a scientist is to make a big discovery, to truly advance the field. It's a quest for knowledge, it's a quest for understanding.
Dark matter, dark energy, there's something beyond, and we don't know yet what that is.
This is a tool to explore the center of the galaxy, essentially.
I think the important questions transcend beyond one laboratory.
We scientists are trying to discover the story of truth, like what's really out there.
Here, so we have no idea.
We have no idea.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise and welcome Cheney, Lindsay Blatt, and David Spergel. Welcome. Guys, congratulations on this film. I believe releasing tonight, right, in the Quad? Yeah. So that's pretty exciting. You guys excited, I imagine, right? Yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's New York.
It's New York.
Very excited.
That's awesome. I was talking to you backstage for a little bit, and I was telling you about how much I really love this film. It's got everything, man. It's got monkey islands, giant telescopes, deep sea diving, the whole nine. It's got it all. So I'm really excited to get into it and talk to you about it. You know, there's a title card right up the front that says that this film is very much in and of itself an experiment. And I was curious about that, where that idea came from, where that concept came from, if that was there from the beginning. Talk to me about that this film is an experiment.
Sure. Super glad to be here. The idea of making a film about big unknowns was kind of handed to me by Motherboard, which is Vice's science channel, and the Simons Foundation Science Sandbox initiative. And then we developed this idea of connecting scientists in this kind of chain of adventures around the world. And that was an experiment. We weren't sure what was going to happen, whether they'd like each other, whether they would, learn from each other, what that would be like. And I think our hypothesis, if you will, was that doing that would allow us to see a different side of science and try and understand some of the commonalities between, physics and consciousness research and try to see what drives all of these scientists into crazy places around the world and in the universe in their research. So.
Well, that's what I was saying. One of the fun parts is watching those aha moments that these scientists get to have when experiencing these other fields that they haven't been focusing on their whole life. You know, they've been looking over here. David, I'm curious. One, we haven't seen a film like this before where the scientists sort of commingle and the disciplines overlap. Is that the case out in the real world? Is that the reason we haven't seen the film, that you guys are very focused in your field and don't really get a chance to step out there?
Yeah, no, and most of the time you spend your time talking to people working on the same problem. You don't really get to sit back. And just the act of explaining what you're doing to someone outside the field is a good reminder of how awesome these questions are. Because we spend most of our time with sort of digging in the dirt, struggling, kind of lost, and we know why we're doing it. But one of the many things this film captured was people stepping back, having the opportunity to explain to a colleague from another field what they're doing, what drives them, and I thought it did a terrific job of capturing the sense of exploration. You know, most science films are about a series of facts, and I don't think of science as about facts, but about exploring and wandering in the dark and trying to figure things out. And I think the film captured that sense of what we do and what it's like to explore and stumble in the dark.
Yeah. You know, to that end of stumbling in the dark, I've always personally been very much equal parts fascinated and terrified when pondering space and the vastness of it and what surrounds us out there. And one of the sources of great anxiety is that there are so many things that in my lifetime I'll never get to know. I'll never know. As a scientist who is seeking out those answers and pondering these same things, is there an inner peace that you have to make from the get-go that, like, I'm only going to be able to learn so much in my lifetime? Is that something you have to deal with?
Yeah, so, you know, I think of this a lot like building cathedrals. And if you go to Europe and you see something, place like Chartres, and these cathedrals that took 200 years to build, and you realize what you get to do is build, you know, a lot of us lay bricks. Some of us get to, like, build one little piece, construct one little window, but it's part of this greater structure. And sometimes, like those early cathedrals in Europe, you build things and they fall down. And you just learn from the fact that it fell down.
What, can you think of something that's fallen down that you've worked on that you've had to figure out and deal with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I spent about, I'm a cosmologist. I work on understanding the early universe. And I worked on an idea that something called a defect led to the formation of galaxies. And this is something like if you take water and you put it in your freezer to freeze it, and you get your ice cube and you look at your ice cube, there's little bubbles in the ice cube. Yeah. It's not a perfect crystal. Those are defects in the crystal. And we worked on this really elegant idea that there were phase transitions in the early universe, and there are defects that form, and those defects would seed the formation of galaxies. It's a beautiful idea. It's wrong. Data came in from the microwave background experiments that completely ruled it out. Yeah. And I got to go to the announcement of the event. I was, this is a while ago now, and I'm quoted in the article in Time magazine begins with a quote by me saying, "We're dead." And, you know, and you learn from that. You know, one of our jobs as scientists is you explore alleys, and some of the wrong alleys. You just don't know.
Well, speaking of the jobs as scientists, and all right, so let's go back for a second. You've been given this task. You have this idea. Let's get all these different scientists together. How do you guys go about figuring out who you want in the film, who the scientists are, and then how do you pair them? How do you figure out, oh, this is going to be funny when this person meets this person? Like, talk about that process.
That's availability is the answer to that. Who's in the field? Can we come? I think with the subjects that we found, they were all doing interesting work in interesting places, so that was kind of the easy part. But then we also had to think about, that conversational aspect and how their work kind of overlaps or sort of runs parallel and perpendicular. And we were so fortunate, I think, with the people that we brought together for this, in that these people are all really passionate about what they do, but they also are able to express that in a really conversational and fun way. and I think that benefits our audience a great deal.
For sure. Like I was saying earlier, a lot of the fun is their interactions together. That is the movie because, and you hit the nail on the head, that there's an excitement in the way they're explaining what they're doing, and then there's an excitement in the other scientists learning these things and understanding it for the first time too, which you don't really get to see that often. When you have a film, a documentary science film like this, you have a single focus and they're deep in their work, and they're telling you everything we've done so far. Here are the facts. Here's everything we know. But there's so much fun and discovery here. How long did each pairing last? How long did they each have together?
Each film shoot was about 2 to 3 days. So it's like kind of a crazy, and these were blind dates.
Yeah.
I mean, we did not tell them, we had to tell them where they were going because we had to send them their plane tickets, but we didn't tell them who they were meeting because these were scientists. Otherwise they do all sorts of research on each other and, try to impress each other, because they do their research. So we wanted these to be pretty raw encounters, and that made it really fun for us as a film crew as well, because the entire experience was, deeply unscripted. And that's very different from how we might approach another science film. Often, as you say, it's about, please recite the facts for me, what did you find? We film scientists walking down a hallway, and then you look through the microscope, and and then you're done. But this was, trying to get at something, I think, kind of deeper and more human. Like, what is it that drives all of these scientists to ask these mind-blowing questions that they may never solve? We in our lifetimes, we may never know what dark matter is. It's 80% of the matter of the universe, we think, but we don't know. We haven't found it. We don't know what it is.
Well, that's what's so fascinating as you watch this, is because the science is there. It's talked about. There are facts, but the undercurrent, what you're really watching, is all of these human interactions, and you're watching how these unknown things drive them, and what is that? And then the big unknown is, what is it that's driving them? Where does that force come from? And there's all these different things that you get to explore. You had 2 or 3 days with each of them. I imagine you amass a ton of footage. How do you start to find your film within there? How do you start to whittle it down? Because they each get just enough time that we get a little bit of their personalities, we get a little bit of the science, and then they move on to the next person. Talk about that balance.
One of the things we were looking for, I think, in the footage was elements we could carry over from one section to the next. So, in the first scenes of the film, a microbiologist who rappels into these amazing caves in central Italy emerges from her cave, Jen McAlady, and travels to meet a physicist named Davide D'Angelo, who's hunting for dark matter. Interestingly, in another cave in Italy, but a kind of human-made cave. Yeah. And they start talking about, what drives their work, and he learns a little bit about the fact that she calls her microbial world, which is deeply unknown. She actually calls that dark matter. Anyway, so dark matter ended up kind of rearing its head in a number of these scenes. Because it was a chain of conversations through the film, Davide then went off to meet a consciousness researcher. He told him about dark matter. Axel, the consciousness researcher, brought that up in his scene. So I think one of the things we were really keen to find was these threads that connected all of these scientists around the world through these conversations that we'd generated, essentially.
David, what is a big unknown that you've devoted a lot of your time and brain power to trying to suss out and work toward? What is the cathedral you've been working on?
Amusingly, dark matter. So to me, one of the only disturbing moment in the film was when Davide talks about, well, there were these first experiments to look for dark matter long ago in the 1990s. And he doesn't remember who it was. It was this ancient time. That was my PhD thesis. Yes. So it's like, oh my God, I'm so old. I'm so ancient. I'm like that work buried in the historical mist.
The film does a cutaway, and it's like cave drawings to illustrate when it happened, and you're like, no.
So yeah,
So you've been working on.
I've been working on dark matter, also the beginnings of the universe, for 30 years now.
Tiny questions.
Yeah. Little, and we've been struggling in the dark. We've learned things that it isn't. So that's progress. You eliminate possibilities. But we're still no closer to being able to answer what the question is. What's dark matter? Yeah. And I think, and this is why I think it sort of resonates through the film, this is something where we know it's there, we know it's important, and we don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And I think I felt so many of the scientists, as they described what they're doing, that was true of, whether it's consciousness or understanding the origin of life. It's all questions we know are really important. And yeah.
I think in the comfort that you just said, I've been working for 30 years and we're still not necessarily any closer, but we're kind of ruling things out. But I think the way that people in our film speak also about, putting in this lifetime of work and just carving and carving and carving, but not necessarily, going to find the answer to things. Right. And that level of comfort, it somehow brings me comfort of like, well, they're asking these, hugely important questions that affect all of us, and they're okay with maybe not getting to the answer. Mm-hmm. And so just in a day-to-day kind of way, there's something comforting about that, it's okay to not know, but just keep asking.
For sure. David, did you find yourself inspired after seeing the film to reach out to, like a geologist or some? That's the first. I went to art school. That is probably the longest list of scientists other than astrophysicists I can give you right now.
I actually knew one of the scientists, the oceanographer. In my job in New York, we're running a computational scientists institute. And that has meant, since coming to New York 2 years ago, I've been learning about all these new fields. So I've actually, I met her before, and so it was fun being at an earlier showing of this to meet some of them, and to talk to them as fellow scientists. I thought, and there were a number of them that I saw who we didn't meet, who I thought, they're doing really interesting things. They would be fun people to talk to.
Speaking of fun people to talk to, Werner Herzog was a consultant on this. I saw in the credits. That's cool. What was that creative relationship like? What was it like working with Werner? How did that kind of play out? What role?
Yeah, his main role was as an advisor watching cuts of the film. I mean, he wanted to see early cuts of the film. I mean, the most raw, horribly edited, just piles of footage that I was deeply embarrassed to share with anyone. But he became a great voice for, remembering really to focus on the kind of the most honest moments in the film. Don't try to edit this thing too much. Let it be what it is, and let the interactions between the scientists really shine. Because I think, as we went through this weird experiment of making this film and bringing all these scientists on blind dates on the mountaintops of Hawaii or in caves or at the bottom of the ocean, we kept trying to figure out, what does drive all these, what connects them. And at the end of the day, I think it was something very human. I mean, it was this raw human curiosity and love of wondering that connected all these scientists. So I think it was our job in the film to try to let that show, focus less on the facts, focus more on the people.
Yeah, for sure. And there is sort of a comfort. I know I said earlier that I have anxiety over the lack of things I could ever understand or comprehend over space, but there is a comfort and an excitement to be had in the amount of stuff still yet to be discovered, and sort of playing around with that idea. My niece had asked, Columbus discovered this. Are we done discovering things since the world has already been mapped out? And it's like, oh, no. Physically, we know what's around here, but there is so much we still don't know. Under the ocean, in the sky, you go in any direction, there's still things we're learning. And I just kind of love the film that celebrates that excitement and that unknown as well. Everything about this is really interesting. Even the release, the way you guys are putting it out. So we're in the quad, but then I saw it's going to go theatrical. Then I think Netflix is doing it as well. And then even, is this right? You're breaking up into sections and releasing on the YouTube channel? And is that something you have to be cognizant of as a filmmaker when you're putting it together, all the different avenues through which people can find their way to this film?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
another experiment.
A lot of coffee. Yeah, no, it is. It's also an experiment in kind of documentary distribution, and that's a really exciting one for us too. Is to see what scientists make of the film and to see what young people make of the film. We really do hope it's something that draws people into science more through the excitement of all the things that there are to figure out, rather than intimidating people by saying science is for people who can memorize all the facts and do all the equations on the board. It's like, no, scientists is for people who are deeply curious, and I think that's something we all share. So yeah, there's going to be 9 roughly 10-minute individual episodes, each focusing on one of our 9 main characters that'll be released on Vice Motherboard's YouTube channel starting in the fall.
Are those completely different edits? Are they slightly different edits, you know, or were you trying in your head, like, all right, let me compose the film in such a way that I don't have to cut this movie 15 times?
No, they contain mostly footage that is not in the feature version of the film. So it's you know, I don't think DVD extras exist anymore, and that's also the wrong way to think about them, because it's just there was so much that emerged from these crazy blind dates that was funny and insightful and wondrous. I mean, we learned so much as a film crew that we, you know, hopefully some of that will, you know, as a filmmaker, you always lament all of the, in a way, it's like all the data you can't show the world. And I'm sure scientists deal with this too. You know, there's probably a lot of data that just ends up in a dusty drawer and you don't publish it, but you're really, I don't know, in a way proud of it or something. But
that is, well, one, I'm really excited to see those now. Someone who's seen the movie, that's really an exciting notion that there's more to see of these people interacting. But 2, man, what a project to have to put all those different elements together. Did you cut those after this was done? Did you do it all simultaneously?
No, they were cut after the feature was made. So the feature was the initial focus. But I think they're all, you know, equally important to us, you know, those shorter pieces, because, you know, they're watchable in an entirely different way. I mean, we love the idea that people are going to be, you know, coming out to the theaters to share this film on the big screen and kind of laugh and wonder together. But we also like the idea that there's more than one way to explore the unknown.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. I'm made of questions. I can do this all day, but I'm getting the signal. We're going to turn it over for audience Q&A. We got a couple of microphones in the room. Looks like our first one's right here in the front.
I really like this kind of films, scientific and film. I just want to know what was the most terrifying experience that you have? I don't know, like, and also what was the place most strangers? I don't know, at the same time beautiful that you ever been during the film. I mean, recording the film.
The most terrifying place, maybe, is one of the questions. That's easy. So we visited this beautiful island off of Puerto Rico that's full of macaques, and we went there with Lori Santos, who's one of the researchers who works off there. And just from a purely am I going to make it out alive scenario, the medical clearance that we had to go and sort of like things we signed away our life to, it was just a scary place. The macaques have this disease that can be deadly to humans, and there are how many hundreds of thousands of macaques on that island? Sorry, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So there was and a lot of protocol, like don't look at them in the eye. That's threatening. So things like that that were totally out of, you know, you don't have, when you're a filmmaker, there's a certain dance of having control over a situation versus letting things happen, and there was a lot of uncertainty there.
Monkey Island is always one of those things that sounds way better on paper than when you actually have to go to the island.
Yeah,
like the reality of it.
Yeah, leaving Monkey Island was a good moment.
Yeah, don't let the monkeys pee in your eyes. It's like, okay, like that's...
It's a legitimate warning that you had to receive and sign off on.
Concern, you have 30 days to live.
I loved how the monkeys didn't act properly in the film.
That's right.
That was like, you know, this real sense of what experiment is like. You want it to go one way, and sometimes it just doesn't.
Right. Yeah, it didn't help that I mean, you know, David's referring to this scene where, so an experiment that Lori was trying to run on the monkeys, essentially didn't work because the monkey kind of wasn't into it and was clearly distracted by the film crew because we had, you know, this boom and all these cameras. And so it was, you know, we were trying to celebrate science, but we were fouling up science through the process of filming it. So
it is a fascinating segment, though, to watch the experiments that have been constructed to test the behavior and all that. But yeah, you're right. I did, in my head, like I kind of remarked to myself, I was like, well, I know they if they did this for a while. We've only seen 2 takes, but I'm sure they tried more than 2 times to make this happen. Right. So I guess these monkeys aren't going to go for these grapes. So I thought it was really interesting, though, and then you go on and explain everything. It's a really cool film, honestly. We got time for one more? I'm going to do one more question out there. What's it going to be?
Hey, guys. I'm just wondering, what was the reaction like when you showed the film? Like, were you able to show it to like the scientific community? Like, what did they think of the movie?
Yeah, the most fun was showing it to the scientists, the 9 scientists in the film. They came to our film festival. A number of them came to our film festival premiere in Copenhagen, which was a few months ago. And I insisted that none of them watch it ahead of time, that they just come to Copenhagen and see it on the big screen and share it for the first time. And I think what was really fun was that they got to relive all these experiences they had, but they also got to meet on the screen these other scientists who were part of this chain of conversations. And what's been really amazing to see in the wake of these initial screenings is that they've all started corresponding with each other. Mostly kind of socially, and just sharing funny stories from the film, or sharing photographs, or making fun of me and Lindsay.
Comparing how many hours we kept them awake to shoot.
Yeah. It's mostly commiseration, I guess. But it was fun to see that we were, starting to forge some bonds that might outlast even the film's distribution itself. So.
That's really fun. You often hear like the cast of Parks and Rec has like a group text thread that they all maintain. So it's like neat that all of these people have banded together and have like a little thread. Yeah. I'm getting it. We're done. Yep, we're wrapping up. Okay, so we've run out of time. I've exhausted time with you guys. Like I said, I could do this for hours, but I'll say it one more time. Congratulations on this film. David, thank you so much for being here as well. I just want to remind everybody, it's opening at the Quad Cinema in New York today, May 18th. When can we find the shorts and where and when else and where else can we see the film, man?
Yeah, the film is we have a theatrical run, so check our website, which is themostunknown.com, for showings in cities around the country. And then it'll be on Netflix in August and rolling out on YouTube shortly thereafter.
Perfect. Well, definitely, one thing we need to talk about is this film is gorgeous. See it in the theater. Make it out for the theatrical run, 110%. One more time, everybody thank Ian, Lindsay, and David for being here. Make some noise. Come on. Thank you so much.